Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Smashing Skull Sessions. This week, I'm joined by another American band, believe it or not, doing a trot. This is a post-rock duo, lads, from Sacramento, California, Living with Giants. I have Carver Simmons, Ryan Manny, lads. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Of course.
Thanks
Good
for
to be
having
here.
us.
Great stuff, lads. Busy time for you, I know. I'm actually excited to have you on the show because, Ryan, we've been back and forth on messages over the last few weeks, and
Yes.
you've been good enough to share with me your new single, which when I think about it, a single, it's 16 minutes long. Like, so I mean, you could nearly call it an EP if you wanted, you know.
Yeah, that was
But
kind of, you know,
yeah, but come here, we'll have plenty of time after to talk about that. But I can't wait to dig deep into that single. But before that, I mean, it's not even a year ago, lad, since you released "This Place Is Not a Home." Back in May, I think it is May 2022.
yeah.
So, lads, give me a little bit of feedback on that album. What's the journey been since then, the last year? I mean, has feedback been good?
Feedback's been really good. We've gone putting on a few favorite picks for EPs of the year, a few really well worded reviews, and just
Right.
reception on it. It was a collection of songs that we had written and performed when we were more than just a duo.
Yeah.
So to be able to really kind of close a chapter and put these songs out there and finally get the reception, it was really great. Just we weren't expecting much to come out of it, but everything that has come out and every new follower that we've gotten from that release is just
Hmm.
blessed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is it doing well on the likes of Bandcamp, or do a lot of people stream it through the likes of Spotify?
We get a lot of playlist streams. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Is that what you want? I'm curious actually when it comes to that. Is that what you need to get on playlists to make an impact on Spotify?
For us, it definitely seems to be more the route
Yeah.
that it kind of takes. We don't put too much out as far as promotion goes.
Hmm.
We are just a duo. We do everything ourselves, where from
Yeah.
start to finish of every project that we go on. So part of it is just a little bit um, getting the word out. So
Yeah.
taking time to do what we're doing right here.
Brilliant.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, and I think with being on playlists, it's about getting our music in front of people that want to listen to the type of music we make.
Yeah.
That's really the important thing, is trying to find fans that will like our music.
Mm. That is the thing, isn't it? When you get into playlists, like you have a new audience as such. Like, I mean, people play these playlists in the background, a track, clicks, and they obviously just hit their screen just to see who that might be. You know what I mean? So I
yeah.
suppose it is a big thing to get onto these playlists. But the title of this album, or that album from last year, "This Place Is Not a Home," where did it come from, lads? Where was the inspiration for it?
It kind of started with me for a little while ago. Originally, funny enough, it was a band name for one of my many contrived side projects that I've tried. I think that one was like a Doom project or something like that. That I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a lot of those. um,
You
but
you just live and breathe music, Ryan, basically, do you?
yeah, that's kind of it for me. Is like I just try to group anything that I have a musical
Uh-huh.
expression for with the same kind of sonic characteristic to
Okay.
where I can, put it in a presentable package to someone. And sometimes it may not fit Living with Giants. Sometimes
Mhm.
it may not fit any of the other things I do. So I have to try to contrive something else.
Very good. What about yourself, Carver? Are you in any other projects, or is Living with Giants sort of your primary project at the moment?
Yeah, living with giants, I'd say is really the primary.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's changed with us becoming a duo too is that a broader range of things that Ryan comes up with can be folded into living with giants.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think when we were, more of a traditional band, we had a narrower view of what living with giants music was.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
we become a duo and sort of transition to being more of a studio band and not being bound to what, four people can play on a stage,
Hmm.
um, the kind of music that we could, see as being a living with giants released has
Yeah.
has brought a lot.
Mhm.
Interesting point, actually, Carver. Is there ever a talk about bringing your music onto a live stage again? The fact that you're a duo, or is it, as you said, Carver, like, is it a recording project for now?
We'd love to play live
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
We've always enjoyed playing live, and I think we have a really energetic stage presence. It just kind of has been the way we reformed. We ended up being two people, and we wanted to just kind of record our music and get it out there. So that
Okay.
became the priority. But I would say by no means would we close the door on performing
Oh,
live.
very good. Very good. And how do you share the workload, lads? I mean, there's two of you there. Is it a 50-50 split?
It's pretty 50-50. We don't do anything unless we both agree on it, first
Yeah.
off. That's kind of the thing. A lot of the times, as far as the process goes, because, we aren't always able to set up full drum set and get down and have, this big, loud practice.
Yeah.
I live in an apartment, and Carver doesn't have the accessibility for us to be able to play a kit at his house. So we've kind of started moving into more of a compact kind of laptop setups for how we write stuff. So it's a lot of back and forth. What that really does allow is little nitpicky details for us to start fine tuning.
Yeah. You're not alone there. Like, the digital age has really, really sort of evolved recording, I think, hasn't it? Really, the days of jamming sessions aren't the be all end all anymore. Like, fellas can share files, transfer from fucking one continent to another. It's mad what you can do now.
We could probably have a whole 2 hour long discussion about the audio industry and consumer audio industry.
We might be on for another podcast, so we might maybe bring one up in that domain. It might be something interesting to talk about. I just, I actually reviewed your album as well last year, lads, and
Yes.
I want to pull just two small passages from it. I just said it really is a beautiful piece of positive and uplifting post rock that will always find a home with listeners that delve into this genre, for its sometimes heartbreaking but positive and emotive highs, right? And later, then I said, what's really nice about this is the fact that there's no rush. Once you're in that moment, you can stay for a while and soak it up. When the track does eventually change pace, the build is patient and the crescendo finally emerges, filling the sky with bursts of color that explode into a downpour of positivity, right? Now, I mentioned positivity twice, which doesn't happen too often in the whole post scene. It's always a little bit on the darker edge, if you know what I mean. Was that a conscious thing when you wrote this album, This Place Is Not a Home, to keep it more of a positive vibe, or is just where your headspace was at the time?
I think it definitely was more in a happier mindset at the time, kind of what we were kind of going through. Because when we wrote it, we had just come off of 2 years after our first debut album, which was, oh my gosh, The World Is Held by a Taut String.
Yes.
So with that album, we had a very, very dark sound, and we started playing out and started playing with a lot of metal bands, and that's what was available in the Sacramento music scene at the time.
Okay.
And also kind of started breaking into a little bit more of the pop punk scene in the Bay Area. So we kind of found a little bit of a influence of both sides. So part of the positivity really came from wanting to create the duality of the two, darker first album and then the follow-up, which would have been This Place Is Not a Home.
Okay.
Originally we had, like I said, we wrote and we were planning on getting it released in 2015, but unfortunately we had a little bit of just life happen, basically.
Yes. It was a question. It was a question for later on, the hiatus of 6 or 7 years. I mean, what happened there? But I suppose you might as well just give me a brief rundown anyway. I mean, I know every band nearly that I speak to, like, this is an underground scene. Bands have families, they've got kids, they've busy work lives. So trying to squeeze a band into all this, I understand it's not easy. Like, but is that basically the reasoning behind yourselves, Carver, Ryan? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I moved away a few years to go to school on the East Coast. So I was living here. I mean, a bit before that, Ryan had moved out to move in with the woman he's now married to. Our guitarist at the time, Will, also, kind of moved further away. So we kind of got to this point where we weren't able to get together and practice easily.
Okay.
Basically before this hiatus started, we had written, This Place Is Not a Home, essentially all the songs on it. We had done full drum tracking sessions around that time. We were really kind of steaming towards getting that release done and out. And then things just kind of slowed down. We were all in different places, and several years of that essentially.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
A lot of it was also why so long it took for us to do it is we were learning a lot at the time as well, as engineers, as musicians. So that is something that we always kind of prided ourselves on, was the fact that we were able to do this ourselves. Not necessarily pride, but we, like to be able to hone our craft. And the vision that we have.
It must be a great feeling to be in complete control of your own music, to be able to mix and master it like you did on this album. You did everything. It was like if there was ever a DIY project to be discussed, like this was the album, wasn't it? You did everything
from the artwork all the way up until the very end.
Brilliant, amazing stuff.
Just about everything.
Give yourselves a pat in the back there, lads. You deserve it. Tell me the artwork then, I suppose, as you just touched on it there, right? Again, what's the concept behind the artwork on that album?
For This Place Is Not a Home. So with that album artwork, we'll touch a little bit on it later as well with Rest. But I was my wife and I are very close, obviously. And
you have to say that tonight anyway.
Of course. At the time she was in Utah and she had to be picked up for like an emergency, and I just remember feeling something calling out to me, just that she didn't belong where she was. She was scared, she didn't like it, and all this stuff. So I drove about 12 to 16 hours from California to Utah to pick her up. And on that drive is where I saw, it's actually a photo of a salt flat for This Place Is Not a Home. So a lot of people think that it's an ocean, but it's actually just, a salt flat. Just that little bit that's out in the distance, that's just kind of what really, once we were calmed down and everything, we were able to see that. That's kind of where I felt more at peace once we were able to get that situation handled. So I think that's kind of where that kind of fell in. The inspiration for the artwork.
Nice one. Just going back to the mixing and mastering as well there. Carver, you did the mixing, am I right? And you mastered it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that something that you do anyway outside of Living with Giants? Have you done it for other bands, like any other albums and stuff? Is that
I'm not working as a mix engineer, but I went to school for that. So that's that's a skill I have, and I like applying to Living with Giants. And Brian's mastering, I just don't like to mix and master with our stuff. I kind of like having a fresh set of ears. I've just found it very hard to sort of transition from the mindset of mixing to mastering. So having Ryan, take that, I think gives a fresh set of ears, and we can kind of give each other different feedback as we're transitioning.
That's handy actually to be able to play off each other like that, having to. Well, with yourself, Ryan, like, I mean, did you specifically want to master it and not get involved in the mixing, or is it literally clashing heads, talking everything through between you?
It really is kind of talking everything through. A big part for me is I am definitely not as good of a mix engineer as Carver. That we can just flat out say that. For me, I like looking at the end result and the bigger picture and kind of constructing around what it is that he's able to deliver and make sure that everybody has a similar experience. That's always my when it comes to math.
Joe, again, I'm just thinking there now, like he sat on that album for a good few years so before it actually, from when it was written to when it was released. So Was there much tweaking done to that album in between all that? Did you change much? Were you happy with what you had originally put down?
It's pretty similar to what it was in 2015. There's
Hmm.
some arrangement changes. Some of the drum parts are a little bit different.
Okay.
The songs are very recognizable, I think,
Yeah.
as the original parts. But there's a few parts here or there. We when we decided to resurrect it as a project, we kind of went back and looked through and we're trying to examine what worked and what didn't. And
Yeah.
that gap of a few years and kind of putting the process of having already written it behind us,
Hmm.
we could kind of approach it. And a few sections we kind of realized weren't doing what we wanted. We rewrote them a little bit, slight arrangement tweaks. So there's a few changes, but for the most part, it's pretty similar to what it was when we left off.
Very good. Very good. I don't want to be leaving out The World Is Held by a Tall String either, because I mean, that was your debut album, like, am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
And again, another great album. I haven't given as much time, I will be honest, as I have with your later work. Like, but again, how do you look back on that album? I mean, that's 2011-ish.
2011, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, geez, over a decade. I mean, we're aging fast, lads. Fuck it. But how do you look back? How do you look back on that album?
Um, there's a lot of memories that come with that album. A lot of firsts for us. Our first album release, obviously, first album release show. Met a ton of friends through that album, as well as just having the experience of doing a self-release. Like, we've learned with each release that we've done, we've learned so much every time we go. And we're just the kind of people that when we start having these things happen, we start taking notes for the next round. Okay, let's start planning for that. But and also just recording ourselves too. Like, we've had a lot that we've learned since then. It's something you want.
I think of how we made that. We did it DIY similarly, but we really did not know what we were doing at all.
It came out pretty well, Carver. Give yourself.
It's. I'm always a little bit amazed when I listen back and I, go, this wasn't a total disaster. We actually we accidentally made an album.
Well, the drums weren't tracked to a traditional click. We had a count in, so Carver was the metronome.
We didn't record it with a click track. The drums were tracked in a basement with, just incredibly suboptimal acoustics.
Really bad microphones too.
Really cheap microphones, bad setup. The overhead mic was a mono mic that we taped to the ceiling.
Literally, like.
So it was. Yeah, it was. We didn't know what we were doing at all. I didn't know how to mix at the time. We had our friend Sean Stack mix the album, and I am honestly in awe of the way he was able to rescue it, because we didn't know what we were doing tracking at all. But I look back at, it showed that that's how we wanted to do things. We wanted to do it ourselves, and if we didn't know what we were doing, we were just going to try and see what happened.
Yeah.
And I mean, that album came out not that long after I joined the band, so that was kind of my first actual, I would say, contribution.
Okay.
Really
nice. You left a good mark there. I know, I can tell you that much, Carver. Was that album toured? So did you gig away with that album around back that stage?
We played a lot of shows around Northern California. Being at the time, Carver, I think you were 17 at the time, or like you had just turned. So he was still doing schooling and stuff. So we were a little landlocked, but there were definitely some times playing some shows for that they were like, oh yeah, you have someone that's under 21. Yeah, you're going to do the opening slot, so you can.
Yeah. There was a lot of waiting outside for me during that period.
You were told to mind the van, Carver, I'd say, were you?
Yeah, it's I did. I play the set, get hustled out the side door, and then I'd be listening in as the other bands played. So yeah, I mean, we played all over this region. We've gone way up north, very northern California. We played down in the Bay Area. Played all over Sacramento. Feels like. We didn't tour. We didn't do like a West Coast tour or a national tour or anything. But during that period we were playing shows all over.
Yeah.
And what type of stuff was popular back then, Ryan? I mean, obviously it wasn't a post rock show you were doing with other bands. Was there a mixture of styles and genres?
A lot of hardcore bands, a lot of
Okay.
metalcore, just that whole scene in Sacramento. Like if you think of the likes of like Veil Maya, that style of music,
Okay.
that's more or less kind of what we were into. And I at the time was doing photography for bands as well, so we got a lot of connections through
All
that.
right.
So and that's just how it ended up happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of promoters didn't really know what to do with us because we would get stuck on metal shows or hardcore shows or like pop punk shows.
Yeah, we actually
And
opened for the story so far.
yeah, we always would put a good set, but I think a lot of times audiences were expecting very different types of music and not really our genre. And so
Yeah.
we were always sort of the odd band on the bill, it felt
Yeah,
like.
yeah. And how did they receive you? That those that were at the gig, like I mean, it
We
was
would
something different from.
always we would always have really good reception as
Ah,
far as
good, good.
when a lot of people wanting to buy our albums, a lot of
Yeah,
people, a lot of merch moving through. Um, but it just at the time, like I still in Sacramento, I'm not sure of many other. I think there's Renewer, and I think Through a Glass Darkly is from Sacramento as well.
okay,
I think those are the only two that I really know of.
right.
So
Yeah,
it's a pretty small community around the Sacramento area. I know up north, they have the Northwest Post Rock Collective, that I've been talking to as well.
okay.
They have a pretty strong connection there, but try to reach them down in Sacramento.
Yeah, and maybe the likes of Post Festival, no, lads, for next year might be a thought.
That would be great.
That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Come here, I'm going to give everybody a chance to listen to some of your music. I'm going to play. Thanks for allowing me to do this, but again, this is from your new single. This is Rest, and this is out on the 28th of July, everybody. So this show is out on the 29th, so might be old news, but even still, get onto fucking Bandcamp, lads, and download this track. It is absolutely incredible. This is Rest. This is from Living with Giants, guys. Have a listen to this. Have it, guys. What a piece of music. I think everyone's going to agree. That is Rest from Living with Giants. A 16-minute single, lads. It just goes through a emotive and heartfelt journey. I mean, it's incredible, lads. Like, I get emotional when I hear post rock played well, and this track really, really struck a chord with me. I had a bit of a moment myself, I suppose, when I heard it from the first time, Ryan, when you sent it to me. I was driving the car, and I was just in another world. I could have crashed, I'd say, because I was in a different zone altogether. Musically, it's a little darker than what we would have heard from This Place Is Not a Home.
Yes.
Can you give me some background to this single anyway? Look, I just leave you take the lead on all this, really.
Yeah. So I can start by saying it kind of happened. This is the first piece of material that we've written and finished since we have been post hiatus.
Okay.
Since we've been post hiatus, back in 2019, my wife actually got diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. So she's had a rapid decline in her health, and she's currently on dialysis and on the transplant list now.
Okay.
So with that, we are actually waiting just for a call at this point. But part of this process of me being able to, deal with this emotional hurdle, I had to find a way to get the energy out because there's no way that I can hold that. And it became a point of therapy to actually start writing music again.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of where Rest came in. Originally, it started out with just the intro guitar part, when the drums actually come in.
Yeah.
That was the first part that was written, that syncopation with the piano and the guitar. And then as things progressed, after This Place Is Not a Home, and my wife's health was getting worse and worse, she had to start dialysis. I just need another outlet again. Mm-hmm. So all the emotions that I had, I started putting into this piece. Okay. And that's kind of where a lot of the inspiration for the emotions in the piece go. It's not necessarily about her and our journey of going through this, but it's definitely influenced by it.
It definitely reflects into the sound of the track. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carver, what was your input into this track then? How did you get involved in writing this one?
I mean, when we released our last EP, we wanted to basically continue and hit the ground running. So we've been working on that. I mean, obviously I don't have the emotional background of the experiences Ryan's saying that have gone to this song. That's not my experience, but being really close to Ryan and his wife and sort of knowing what they're going through, that really allowed me to channel that, kind of bring my contribution when I was writing. Because I think this song has a lot of emotional and energy sort of ups and downs. So for me, kind of understanding the background that Ryan was bringing to it, I think helped me kind of apply the right touch.
Yeah. I mean, it further explains why I got so emotionally charged listening to it, because obviously I didn't know the background to it, Ryan, until maybe
I tried to keep that.
Maybe to a post only a few days ago, you put an Instagram to giving a little hint on it. And I can see how you channeled your emotions through this track, and it's fucking stunning, like it really is. And by the way, I wish your wife all the very, very best. I hope everything works out. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Will this release see a vinyl press, do you think? Will it get CD copies, or have you even got that far in thinking?
We've given it a little bit of thought. It's still up in the air at this point. It is something that, we always want to have a physical copy of our music.
Yeah.
Whether that be like we've done hand knitted CD sleeves and things like that. We very much a DIY band from start to finish.
Exactly, yeah. But these are things people collect. These are things that mean a lot to people,
Yeah, and if we do it, we really want to do it right. So we we're being very choosy who we go with, as well as what process we choose to
Yeah.
go through with the packaging and everything.
Is
Because
it
that's
is
something I'd like to have a hand in.
I get you. And is it fair? Would it be fair to say there is record labels sniffing around? Have you been in contact with some of them, or can you
You know,
say?
they're a little quiet if they are, but
Okay, okay. Well,
um,
yeah, I think this track will make a huge impact in the post music scene. I really do, lads. And I'm not just
thank
saying this because you're on my show. I'm not just saying it to boost confidence and try and get people to listen to me or listen to anything else. This track really is a standout track so far this year in the post rock scene. It is an amazing piece of music.
really
Where
appreciate that.
No worries, guys. Where are you going to go next? Because you did call it a single, but again,
Mhm.
as I said, Ryan, like you could have added one more track maybe to this and called it an EP, but
Yeah.
no issues whatsoever. Like, but did you just want to get this track out there because you had it, or was it a case of it needs to stand alone?
I think definitely having it stand alone for the time being is the choice that we went with for the reason that the story that
Yeah.
influenced it with my wife is still very open ended.
Mhm.
I think that's a big part of the reason why I felt to end the song where it ends
Okay.
as well. Just kind of how it has that, you know,
Yes.
that feeling of okay,
Mhm.
and and
Yeah. There's more, is there? There's more. Exactly. Yeah. I get you.
exactly.
Yeah. So for now, it's a single, which
Yes.
will be released on the 28th of July. As I said, everybody, it'll already be out there when this comes out. Be sure to hit the Bandcamp page. Beyond that, Ryan and Carver, have you even thought about, have you been writing other material, or is this where you're at the moment?
Oh yeah, I've definitely been noodling. So um, we we have a lot of different directions that we're looking
Okay.
at this point. Carver and I have always, if there's a hidden album that you won't be able to find anywhere, you might be able to find one reference of it, I think, on Sputnik. I put out an EP under Living with Giants originally in 2009 titled Songs for a Girl. It was an
2009.
ambient inspired, um, like folk, just random inspired performance recordings.
Okay.
And that's actually the origins of Living with Giants as a solo project. But with that, that's actually something that we've, kind of toyed around with. Carver's mom is a great ukulele player,
Mhm.
and just trying to figure out ways to incorporate different kinds of instruments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the next step musically, because this was sort of going away from just being a release that the number of people in the band could perform live
Mhm.
to being something we had a more orchestral approach in terms of
Yeah.
arranging and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, and I think next, maybe other types of instrumentation would be interesting.
Mhm.
I would love to do something simple and stripped down. I'd love to do a really big elaborate production. I'd love to do something with instruments we've never used in a Living with Giants song. I
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of directions we could go, and yeah,
Yeah.
we have a lot of ideas.
I think a lot of what inspires us to move forward, and we love engineering. We love
Yeah.
audio engineering, figuring out how to collect all these sounds and capture and
Mhm.
like them and just change them into what we have in our heads. So I think that's definitely going to be part of the influences. How do we want to approach this next as a production?
Okay.
I think that's definitely going to be what helps dictate what we're going to be out with, because we do want to go darker. We do want to
Yeah.
go heavier. We do want to go brighter and happier as well. And that's the lovely part about post rock. It always just wants to elevate and just
Absolutely.
kind of
Absolutely, Ryan.
further
Yeah.
and further.
Yeah. I mean, what I do love about post rock is the fact that as you touched on, Carver's an instrument, anything can make its way into a post rock album, any instrument of any kind, if it's played if it's played right, it will sound right, you know. Because there's so much emotion in this style of music, you know, highs and lows, and there's an instrument for every emotion, like everything is there, everything's up for grabs. Ukulele, trumpets, trombones, bass, brass, you name it, you know, it's fantastic. Playing live, so lads, is not on the agenda for now. Am I right in saying that?
What I can say is when Rest was arranged, there are 5 individual guitar parts on one section.
Oh, yeah.
So I need to start finding 5 guitarists to make this plan come alive.
Maybe an online version maybe might work out, right? Maybe getting 5 guys online like we had to do during COVID. Do you know,
yeah, exactly. We'll do a Zoom
Zoom thing, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
exactly.
I'm of no help to you, like, but anyway, I'll come along. I'll come along for the ride, you know. Just out of curiosity, before we stop talking about this track Rest, how long did that take to write, guys, from start to finish?
So originally the original part was written in 2019. But it kind of sat on the shelves until right after we stopped working on This Place Is Not a Home. So I think that was March.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably about this time last year, or maybe a little bit earlier, that we got together and actually sort of jammed it, played the parts together live.
Okay.
And that was, I would say, probably when the song actually felt like it was really coming together and sort of a collection of parts. There was a lot after that, though, too, because I listened back to, we like just sort of put our recorder out and had it, you know, going for the hour that we were jamming. And I was listening to it the other day. It's very different. We were, you know, Ryan was like looping parts and I was trying to like figure out what to play. And I would go, oh, that doesn't sound right. And I'd start a different pattern. So I think that's when it really came together, but it was also different than it is now by a lot.
Brilliant. I think the part of how long it took to write as well is just the amount of detail that really went into every little section, down to the timing of how those cymbals get bowed, the gongs get bowed, how every little nuance, especially in movement 3, that ends up happening. We spent I think we spent almost an entire month just simply on percussion elements.
And they are beautiful. Like, again, those brush strokes, even in the piece that I played on the percussions, like, I mean, I can only imagine the recording process, getting every little, as you said, every little nuance correct. I hope people appreciate the time and effort that goes into writing and creating a 16-minute piece of music, you know?
Well, and as well with the guitar parts too, when we actually record, this is actually kind of interesting. I record myself in isolation and frustration. And I decide to perform the entire section as a whole. So as soon as you hear that trem guitar, that not stop the entire time. So for the entire section that you showed earlier, that guitar that enters in the beginning, that's one entire take.
Wow.
So it really almost needed to be that way on this, I think, especially to push the emotions that kind of come up and down, the ebb and the flow of just being tired as well.
I know you mentioned, Ryan, like the circumstances surrounding the idea behind it and what created it and the emotion that you went through in writing it, but influences musically around the time of writing that single. Was there anything that sort of came into play?
Funny enough, we just made a playlist.
Well, I think there's one album that I feel like we brought up as like engineering influence a lot. The Cult of Luna, their last album.
Very good.
We were kind of listening to that a lot, just because we really like the sound of the mix.
Everything.
The mix just sounded really good to us, and so that we kind of kept going back to that song. And but yeah, Ryan put out a playlist, which I think is on our Spotify page of kind of things we were listening to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to have a check
I don't
out.
know if I'd say influences, but yeah, things we like, things that we were listening to at the time, really.
A lot of like Bowen and Dirt Club of Gore. Obviously, a lot of This Will Destroy You,
Uh-huh.
Sadness,
Yes.
Death Heaven, and there weren't too many really, because as soon as it started taking shape, it just kind of ran away with it.
Yeah.
We kind of had more difficulty trying to figure out mix references
Okay.
and mix influences for the entire piece because it is a lengthy piece.
Yeah. And again, I suppose the mixing and the mastering of this track, you learned a lot from the previous album, This Place Is Not Home. Would I be right in saying
Mhm.
that, Carver? You're always
Yeah, well,
learning,
that
obviously,
was the
like you're
first
always,
time I sort of mixed a whole Living with Giants project. So, and
all right.
sort of DIY thing. I'd used Living with Giants material as school projects, but that was a very different process because I wasn't going back and forth with Ryan. I was, trying to get a song mixed to show to a professor,
Mhm.
and not, something that I was wanting to put out. Um, but yeah, I think This Place Is Not a Home. We really refined that process and sort of figured out how to work in that way together, um, and that we ended up, I think, going a lot more ambitious with the production style and
Okay.
mixing this release, and
Yeah.
having the experience having done that just a year ago, helped us kind of give the footing to be able to step up and try to do a little bit more.
Okay. Uh, are you excited about the release of this track?
Oh,
I'm so
Like
excited.
compare it to what you've been releasing before, is there a bit of I don't know, how would you apprehension, a bit of
I'm excited.
butterflies?
I'm really curious to see what people think of this.
Yeah.
I think it's more exciting because this is newer material. This is material we've written and kind of put together very recently.
Yeah.
This Place Is Not a Home, I would say, was basically, save for the kind of arrangement changes
Mhm.
that we talked about earlier, it was ready to release in like 2014 or
Yeah.
2015. So that felt almost weird going back to revisit old material. This, I think, is like very fresh. I remember how it went together in basically every way, which I can't say for the Place Is Not a Home songs because that was a lot of it was just a while ago.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to get this out.
Good.
I really want people to hear it.
Yeah, and I think with it with the previous release with This Place Is Not a Home, it felt like closing a chapter on those that
Yeah.
side of Living with Giants as well. Because it was older material that
Mhm.
we had, written as a quartet. But working as a duo and focusing more on studio craft is opposed to, okay, this is the part where they're going to mosh, or
Yeah.
just kind of really dive into philosophy of like how notes make you breathe differently.
Mhm.
That whole kind of metaphysics ideology that you can find in a lot of this style of music, I find,
Okay.
when it comes to composition.
Mm.
Um, I think that's what I'm really excited about, is to see the reception that I've heard back from a few people, and it's all been amazingly positive.
Yeah.
Far more than I could have expected. Like, I've shown some coworkers and they don't listen to post, they don't listen to hardcore or anything else, but they're like, I feel something in that.
Yes.
There's something there, and that's
There is.
an amazing feeling that I hope once it is released, that everybody can participate in with us.
Yeah. I think this post scene gives people a chance, gives music a chance, which is a great thing. I think everybody is willing to listen to something new. And other, music is. I mentioned I was talking to the lads from the Death Beneath Us only 2 nights
Mhm.
ago, and I just mentioned, music has just become so throwaway. A track will drop, an album will drop.
Yeah.
You'll give it a quick listen on Spotify, and you'll move on. The days of sitting down with a track like Rest for 16 minutes, eyes closed, lights off, and just, feeling the music. It's something that seems to be disappearing. It actually kills me to say it, like, but I think that's the way music has gone, and the likes of digital streaming and all that. It's just so easy to get a taste of a track. Not for me, move on. But you could be walking away from an incredible album, like,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
I make this type of music and I don't sit down and listen as much as I should. I mean, I
Mm,
feel exactly the same with that.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of weird to put out a piece of this length like this
yeah,
when how things are shifting, but
Yeah. It's
yeah.
very against the grain, I feel, at a certain point, because we're not going to, it's a little bit of a deterrent for playlisters,
yeah,
or any of that, but we really wanted to represent these songs and as a collective piece.
yeah.
That's why we keep referring to it as a piece rather than, you know, something else, because it is individual ideas for one thing to come out.
But you're right, right? Because if you wanted, like, I mean, if you weren't as concerned about what you've created, you could easily split that into three shorter tracks. That was possible, like, but the journey wouldn't have been the same.
No,
Not
definitely.
by a fucking long distance, like.
We talked about that extensively. I mean, we went
Up until like the day I uploaded
yeah, I
it.
would say yeah, up until quite recently we were going back and forth and ultimately we kind of settled, would it make sense for one of the three tracks to come up on shuffle or something like
Okay.
it kind of to us didn't make sense without context. And so,
Yes.
yeah, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people that see a long song and they go, oh no, and they just hit next.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or, a long song that opens with a very quiet sort of intro.
It's a single
that's
guitar
very
for an
soft.
entire minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But
yeah,
it does
trying to make these
it does
decisions
bring you
about,
in
oh,
though.
will we do something that
It
helps our
brings me
streaming
in.
numbers
Yeah.
or, yeah, but no, what we landed on was this is a single piece. I think like this is the best way to present it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you've done a sterling job on it, and I really do. And I wish you all the best with it. But again, like I said, this post scene gives music a chance, I think. And again, I think if you go 2 or 3 minutes into this track, you won't walk away from it. That's what I
Mhm.
found. The minute those guitars, that ambience, that atmosphere just sort of sucks you in, it's hard to walk away. So I high hopes for this track, lads. Come here, that's all my questions really. I want to just have a little bit of fun there with the session questions I would have
Yeah, of
sent your way
course.
there a couple of weeks ago. Um, we're going to kick off with the first one there, lads. What musician or band would you like to hear do their own interpretation of one of your tracks?
One of our
Was that
tracks.
was that the questions I sent to you? I think it was. I hope it was.
No,
You had it the other way
other way.
around.
Is it? Yeah. I mix them around. So yeah. Who would you
It's
like to
okay.
hear? Who
we
would you
we
like
can
to
answer that
hear?
one too.
Who would you like to hear do
It's
a
going to be
cover
the
of it?
same answer for me. I'd like Sam Smith to cover one of our songs. That'd be great.
And
um,
who?
my pick would be Unholy by Sam Smith. Just something about that orchestration
Okay.
and just the delivery of the vocals. We come from a musical theater background, actually. That's how we
Right.
met. Um, so just something about that track just invites like a character in a way.
Right.
And I feel like that would be a fun kind of challenge to kind of try to portray with guitar.
Okay.
Uh,
So we go back to
I
your
don't know.
original question, so lads. But I actually did send you. What track would you like to do? Am I right in saying that? Is that what I sent you? What would you like
Yeah.
to do an interpretation of? Or cover version?
Well, I don't know. I think it would be fun to do an instrumental cover of like a Deftones song or something that's very dark and kind of atmospheric.
Hmm.
Not quite our style, but
Hmm.
related, somewhat close.
Yeah, yeah, good
Um,
call. It was mentioned last week actually as well. Deftones were dropped, which is interesting. Ryan,
mm,
have you one there for me?
I'd probably go with Mr. Brightside. Um,
Very good.
it's just slow it down like about to 85 BPM or something like that, and just really, really slow melodic feel to
it's
it.
got a lot of soaring melodies.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
it would be
yeah.
really good.
Would you
Or
incorporate a
Wander.
lyric or a vocal to it, Ryan?
I'm sorry?
Would you incorporate a vocal to that?
You know, I can't answer that question. I'm so undecided as far as
Yeah.
vocals go. Originally, when Living with Giants started, I did have lyrics for actually each of those songs on the EP that is now hidden.
Lost
by
in
my
MySpace archives.
lost to MySpace archives. But I just never felt right. It just didn't feel like the same kind of story. Like I'm personally not able to emote through voice
Okay.
in the same way I am on guitar.
Right. But what about spoken passages? Because we spoke about this on the review room there, the new series that I brought out there last week. We're speaking about spoken passages put into music, which I love myself. Is it something that you ever dabbled with? Is it something that you would look into messing around with?
There was actually one track that we did mess around with a choral kind of feel to it.
I mean,
yeah, that was a while ago.
For the most part, I think we've steered away from that post-rock trope of, sort of the vocal sample, spoken word thing. So I don't know. I mean, we haven't really ever gone that direction. But if we had we had the right message that we needed to convey in the song, if it fit.
Never say never, saw Carver. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a big part of it is with the whole vocals is I don't want to I'd be okay with vocalization, but with lyrics and everything else, I feel trapped as a listener at times.
Okay, interesting concept, yeah.
And with a lot of the instrumentation that we do choose to do, being very delicate, being very interwoven together, like I mentioned earlier, having 5 different guitar parts go over each other and adding a voice on top of that is just a little chaotic already.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes sense. That makes sense. Right, let's move on to the second question, which I'm pretty sure this is the correct one I sent you. What movie or series would you like to hear one of your tracks appear on? Carver, we'll go with you first.
I would, I would love Westworld. I think I remember when the first season came out a while back. The soundtrack for that was all these like orchestral covers of like Radiohead songs.
Oh yeah.
And I remember listening to that and going like, "Oh, that's so cool! I wish like I had done that." That show's canceled now. But I really like the way they approached this sort of like orchestral or like Western arrangement of basic 90s alternative. That was
Good call, Carver. Yeah, right.
I couldn't think of a specific movie or series, but within a genre, I would like to see our music come up on someone's headphones as they're taking them off on a show like CSI or something like that. Like some little punk kid in the corner, just like, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. That's a first, right? That's a first.
Incidental music.
Yeah.
In a crime procedural.
But I love the idea that you're talking that you're mentioning, Ryan. Yeah, the fact that it's playing in the background in someone's background. It's sort of a twofold.
Exactly.
Nice call.
Now,
nice
are we the
call,
music that the serial killer listens to, or
find out next episode?
Right, lads. The third question. So I've mixed these up a few times. This is the one I have in front of me, but it may not be the right one. Who do you regret not seeing live? No?
Huh?
Who do you regret not seeing live? What band?
Ooh, there's so many. That wasn't the question.
No.
That's a good question.
I'll ask you the other question after this one before we leave, yeah.
Okay. Probably Sigaros. The last time that they came through. Okay. I had a whole bunch of friends that went to when they played in Berkeley, and it was just apparently the most phenomenal night. And they're one of my bucket list bands for sure. So,
Carver, can I put you on the spot as well here? No, since this wasn't the question I
mean, that was too good of an answer. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've seen a decent amount of my bucket list bands, but there's a fair number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Have you
know.
seen Russian Circles?
I have not. That's a good one. Yeah, I
No.
mean, I think maybe the post metal bands I have not
Hmm.
seen a lot of since getting into. So
Yeah.
Russian Circles would be probably a good show.
It is a
Uh,
fucking amazing show. Have you seen him, Ryan?
No, I want to
No.
so
Oh yeah.
bad.
Russian
Yeah.
Circles, Cult of Luna would be a great show to see.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm just thinking. I think wasn't Caspian was like the last show I saw before the pandemic.
Yeah.
That was
No.
like a couple before lockdown, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Another
that
amazing show. I'm assuming Carver, you witnessed there. Yeah.
yeah, that was great. But yeah, I think yeah, a lot of the post metal that I've got into in the last few years, I didn't haven't really seen those bands live,
Hmm.
so go with that.
Right. So that was the question that I didn't send you, but I think the one is that I should have sent you was, and I did send you, was who would you like to play support? Am I right? What
Yeah.
band would you like to pay a support act to or guest act?
Um, so I being that we aren't having plans to play live currently, I'd
Hmm.
love to see a reunion tour of Minus the Bear. I saw them on their farewell tour and they were absolutely phenomenal. And I think
Okay.
just the difference of music,
Yeah.
um, we might be able to kind of balance each other a little bit. I feel like it would be a very interesting combination of energy.
Nice one. Nice call, right? Jeez, that was well thought. That question was well thought. It's a good job I
I
asked it.
went way back and forth. I went through like, oh, I should say Taylor Swift. She's my wife's favorite, so I can get her ticket, and then just I can annoy as many people as possible. But
No,
I
you're
just,
right. You were right to call what you called. Carver, what about yourself?
Um, their fans would hate us, but one of the most fun shows I ever went to was Meshuggah. Uh, that was a
I
crazy
actually
crowd.
don't know who that is, Carver.
They're
Sugar.
they're like a Swedish technical metal, progressive
Oh,
metal
Michelle. Oh,
band.
sorry. Jesus. Yeah. Apologies, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't fit at all. But
No.
that was one of the most fun shows I went to. Just the crazy crowd, their light setup, their light rig is crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, I would love to just sort of like try to, warm a crowd up with that's expecting that sort of energy. Like just bring our own energy to see.
Yeah. With
Oh,
the opportunity of to be rained on with bottles, just in case. Be prepared,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
now
exactly.
everyone's getting stuff thrown at them. So maybe
It seems to be a craze at the moment. I don't know what's going on.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a phenomenon all of a
I was
sudden.
watching Metallica clips there actually just recently of their latest tour, and there's people fucking throwing bottles at them. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
It's money.
Huh?
You get a tax refund off that.
Right, there you go, lad. That's it. That's all the questions I have. That's everything. I hope you enjoy that show, lads.
Yeah, of course.
Great
Yeah.
stuff. Come here. I want to thank you for coming on. Ryan, I know we've been talking on and off there for the last couple of months. It was a joy to finally chat in some way face to face. I can't wait for people to witness and hear Rest on July 28th, lads. Be sure to fucking get on Bandcamp and get this track because you will absolutely be blown away. Whatever you know of Living with Giants, amazing post rock, but this, they've taken a little detour here direction with this track. It's something that will really resonate with everybody that listens to it, I think. So be sure to check that out. July 28th. Ryan, Carver, thanks so much, guys. And who knows, we might catch each other at some stage down the road.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Please
Thank
go.
you so much for having
Thank
us.
you.
It's been
Not
great.
about it all, guys. Pleasure was all mine. There you have it, lads. Living with Giants. Check them out. Thanks to Richie from the Metal Set Podcast, who edits and produces the show. And also thanks to our main sponsor, Rising Suns Brewery, who brew beautiful craft beers right here in Cork City. Check them out. Until 2 weeks' time, see you on. Take care. Bye-bye.